Welcome to Soundwave Society. I'm Naima Bock.
All right, welcome back to Soundwave Society. We are here for a very exclusive interview with Naima Bock. We are here at the Rabbit Box in Seattle, Washington. And just a warning, just due to some time constraints, you will see a couple of jump cuts in this video. But yeah, we are here with Naima Bock. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're here. We're very excited for the show tonight. And how's tour going so far?
It's been great. We've kind of done a sporadic tour of getting to LA on the 20th of August, and so the whole thing has been about a month long, but I've managed to spread the shows apart enough so we can have some traveling time, which has been good. But Mildred, who you can probably hear in the background, hopefully not too loud, has been touring. We've done like 3 shows together now, and then we're going to do this one tonight. And then we've got a practice day, and then we're going to go and do KEXP afterwards, which will be fun. Yeah.
You did the KEXP last time we were here, right? Yeah, that's a very good video. Definitely worth checking out. So yeah, as the album's set to be released September 27th, it's a lot of concert goers' first times hearing this new material. I'm curious how the reception been so far, and are there any sort of standout tracks you've noticed among the crowds?
That's a good question. I think probably, well, the last few shows we've had, so Mildred have joined me for the last 4 songs, and I think Gentle's probably one that stood out. I've had a bad habit recently when I've been playing shows on my own just to play new songs that no one's heard, and even newer songs than this album. And so this tour I was like, no, I'm going to actually play songs that people have heard, and so I'm trying to put all the songs that we've released so far and then also the old album as well. But I don't know, in terms of standout, I'm not sure. I mean, the singing with them has been real special, and I think that's really connected, like, with people in the audience. And just finding people that you can actually sing with well. I mean, it's mostly thanks to them because they're such good singers, but that really helps the show a lot.
Speaking of Gentle, that's definitely a favorite of mine that I will be inquiring about shortly here. But yeah, jumping into the album, the title of the record, Below a Massive Dark Land, it comes from an excerpt in Olga Tokarczuk's Flights, referring to a passenger's view from an airplane. There's an excerpt from an earlier section of the book that I sort of wanted to share, as I found it also related to the record. So as it goes, then you realize night gives the world back its natural, original appearance without sugarcoating it. Day is a flight of fancy, light a slight exception, an oversight. A disruption of the order. The world is in fact dark, almost black, motionless and cold.
Wow.
So.
She's such a good writer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As the album addresses themes of regret, loss, abandonment, this note stood out to me the more I've connected with the record, as it feels kind of synonymous with the writing across the album. I'm curious how you feel the sense of darkness in the album title contribute to the music.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of funny. I guess the darkness part of it, I feel like the songs turned out a lot more moody, maybe, than I'd initially intended them to. And like the first album, maybe compared to the first album, was probably felt a bit more like spring. I mean, that's what my manager said. He said the first album felt more like spring and this album felt more like winter, which is kind of a funny trajectory. You sort of want to be going the other way, but I'm happy to have that, you know. And actually, throughout the writing of the record, you know, there was a lot of good. Like, my life was good and also at times bad, and so that things, especially things like books, like reading Olga Tokarczuk's book Flights, and then reading a lot more Roberto Bolaño, and certain authors helped me get through certain times a lot, and so I feel like that kind of bled into the writing of the songs. Yeah, and also it's like a comfort to write a song within like darker periods, you know. And if you have enough space, if you're lucky to have enough space in your life to do that, then yeah, it's been good.
You've mentioned a sort of sense of imposter syndrome during the creative process of your music, particularly with Giant Palm. As you said, you didn't see the value in the songs musicians were contributing to. But listening to Below a Massive Dark Land, you've struck a balance sonically with majestic and rich instrumentation and frequently grand orchestral arrangements, all while maintaining an intimacy in what feels like a very precisely executed, fully realized sound. And it comes across with confidence and conviction. How have things changed in your approach and outlook towards collaboration between Giant Palm and now?
I think that it's funny because collaboration is something that I think about loads when it comes to music. It tends to be the main theme on my mind, which is a slightly irritating theme of whether I should or shouldn't do it. And then I always seem to, regardless of what my thought process maybe, I'll always end up just working with loads of people anyway, you know. So like after Giant Palm, I thought, well, that was real fun, and I love playing with all those musicians, but this next record I want to try and do on my own a little bit more. But then I mean I always work with Ollie, the violin player who played with me on KXP. Like me and him will always work together because we tour together, and so we'll kind of within that touring world, and then at home as well, I'll play him. He's the person I go to when I've got a new song, you know. So we'll always work together. And then like what kind of happens around that is maybe up for question and up for changes, but I always want to try and bring it a little bit further away from loads of instrumentation, because I like listening to records that are really sparse. So it's kind of a weird, it's like what's it called, like a cognitive dissonance, where like what I want, it doesn't seem to be what actually happens. And maybe it's just something that, like, in a way, without sounding too cheesy, but in a way it's like the songs kind of want it regardless of what I want, you know. Like whenever, like when we were doing Gentle, it's like, oh yeah, we could have it really stripped back and acoustic, but then you can't not hear some parts that should be a little bit more orchestrated, and then you can't really go back from that point. And I'm lucky enough to have loads of mates who play good instruments, play their instruments well. Yeah, so it's a complicated relationship.
Fair enough. I guess furthermore on the collaborative side of the record, definitely achieves a comforting intimacy with the delicate approach to the reflective and vulnerable songwriting. With a lot of the themes being so personal on the record, I'm curious if that presented any challenges opening these songs into kind of a more group setting along the way.
I don't think that I do the thing a bit ignorantly where I don't think that people will actually pay any attention to the lyrics, especially in terms of like going to record the music. I think that maybe once the music is recorded and released, that's something that listeners would do and that I would do when I listen to something. But yeah, in terms of like feeling vulnerable, I guess, around the people that I record with, it's just kind of a natural step that you have to take. Like I think that with Giant Palm I wasn't used to doing that, so I thought that it felt extra exposing. But with this one, I'd been playing these really like vulnerable songs in front of crowds of people for like support tours and stuff. So by the time we got into the studio, I was like, that's the deal, is that you got to be a bit embarrassing, you know, and you like have to put yourself on the line a bit. So I didn't feel too like annoyed about it, or I didn't feel particularly sensitive about it until the very last day. And then for some reason on the very last day of the recording, I got a big kind of wave of emotion. But up until that day, I was just super practical about it, and the songs had been written and I was like, that's done. And so that kind of emotional part was over, and then the practical part had to step in, you know.
So I guess back to Gentle here. It's definitely one of my favorite songs of 2024, as while it's simply stunning, it's your perspective on conformity that comes through in the lyrics that I find so just striking and emotionally resonant. The song pieces together different sections of your life, whether it be different versions of yourself or situations you were in. As you've sat with this song, has your perception of it changed over time, and do you use it as almost a tool of self-reflection, or for emotional reconciliation of those times?
Yeah, I think so. It's a song that I haven't like tired of playing live because it's always quite cathartic as well. It is a mixture. It's a big mixture. It kind of starts out a lot sadder and then turns into a bit more angry song, But it's in that sense. I'm trying to think. Wait, what was the question? It was like, do I feel like I can kind of change the...
Has your perception of it changed over time? Are you looking back on it as a tool of self-reflection almost to those stages in your life?
I think so. Yeah, I would say that it still feels fresh enough. I think I only wrote it last year, early last year, and the stuff that it's written about is still fresh enough. And actually I did change the lyrics a couple of times since writing it, and so that in that way it's kind of maintained some level of emotional weight whenever I play it. But yeah, and also I find it easier to tap with that song in particular. At the end, it's easy. It's anger and being pissed off is quite an easy emotion to tap into. Sometimes easier than sadness or remorse or nostalgia or whatever. I find it quite easy to quite quickly tap into being angry. And so it's in that sense, it's a nice way of releasing that. But I do still feel close enough to the events that formed that song for me to get some kind of healing from playing it, for sure.
While Gentle is so impactful and stifling in itself, it is accompanied by a uniquely contemplative music video directed by Ellie Wintour and Sophie Lincoln. Your character plays on femininity as a facade, and while using two-dimensional objects in place of three-dimensional objects to mix the worlds of real and make-believe to play on the song's themes of conformity, expectation, and assigned roles. And it's just one of the most profound and memorable videos of recent memory. Can you speak on some of the backstory and the making of this video and how it came about?
Yeah, so we had I would say that all of the credit goes to Sophie and Ellie. They did a really amazing job and they came up with the concept of it, and then we just had some discussions about because Sophie was in charge of the outfits, which is a really massive part of the whole thing, as well as directing it. And so the pen fell. And so we kind of had some discussion, I was involved a little bit with talking about what outfits we were going to wear, and we kind of made sure that we kind of got the outfits to be a bit more masculine-y, whatever that means. But we did that, and then and that was pretty much my only input of it. They sort of listened to the song and then came up with the concept, and I liked it, and it felt like they've got quite a lot of experience in that field, and Ellie with set design and Sophie with costumes, and so it was really nice to work with them, and it felt very professional. They everything was executed, and they did the scenes were all set out. It was pretty flowed very well, which was a nice change. But yeah, it was great. And I think other than that, in terms of I would like to say more clever things about it. I think that's pretty much it. And also everything was made out of paper and it was really hot, so I was suffering like hell. But it seems like I've never done a music video that isn't pretty much constant suffering. Seems to be a lot of suffering involved in music videos, and I mean that in the nicest way, with a lot of love for everyone I've ever done a music video with. But yeah, it was fun and suffering.
Alright, so Lions may be a familiar track for listeners, as a reworked version makes up track number 5 on the LP. Its themes of impermanence and regret still prove to be poignant with its use of the ocean's tide metaphorically throughout, only this time finding almost a more delicate and stripped back sound in the album version. What was the inspiration behind the change?
Well, I felt like I've always really liked that song, and I just felt like I never quite got it right in recording it. I didn't quite hit the mark, and I think that with playing it live, we'd done it enough, and it always felt correct live, and then recorded, it just didn't really hit. And so we had loads of different versions of it, and then we settled on this version that we did for the record, And I just think as soon as I start doubting, you know, a song and what kind of instrument should be on it, I feel like stripping it back seems to be the most useful or like the most impactful thing to do with the song. And so we tried that, and I think it sounds good. I haven't listened to it in so long that I kind of forgot what it sounds like, but that was mostly it. I just thought it would be nice to have the lyrics like actually be a bit more upfront and have the whole thing just feel a little bit more relaxed and a bit more in line with how I do it on my own, I guess.
And then Takes One, I want to inquire about that one because it's a stunning record that also grasps very inspired highs between the divine arrangements and just very inspiring vocals as well. Furthermore, the song structure, it's rather fascinating the way it has a very clear shift and then it builds from that point. The shift feels like it matches the sense of self-realization and release in the song, and it's followed by a sort of struggle for self-peace expressed in the lyrics. I'm curious if this was a focus in the approach of the composition.
Yeah, it was that. I'm glad you liked that one. That's my favorite song. And it's actually that's the first song that I wrote after recording Giant Palm, so I wrote that quite early on. But it was a nice one because because I wrote it so early on, it meant that I could workshop it for ages. Whilst on tour with a band, I would always open up the set with that, and then we would go into a full band set, you know. And so I just felt like I spent loads of time with that song, and actually nothing really changed about it, but I just spent time with it, and it meant that I could kind of get into it more. And like it felt like a universal enough. Like last lines, like the last line of Someday You'll Find Another One kind of felt universal enough for it to not become irrelevant in my life or in many people's lives, you know, unfortunately. But in terms of the construction or the composition of it, it was intentional. In a way, I guess I found that it was a pasting together of two different songs. And so the original song was like the first half, and then I had this song that I felt like it had already been finished, and then the kind of Someday You'll Find Another One, you know, repetitive outro, I guess, or second half of the song, I just came up with in my car. And then, like, as in the melody I came up with in my car, and then I've done this a few times, you just sort of stick them together. Yeah. And it worked nicely because it was also the change, you know, the obvious change of, like, minor to major, and then it's this sort of uplifting thing, especially, and in tempo as well, you know, there was definitely a conscious decision to, like, make it a little bit lighter, and that was really at the height of when I was learning violin. And so I was all kind of excited, and I came up with the outro melody, and I was very proud of myself, you know, which is like the nicest points in writing music is when you feel real proud of yourself for it, you know. It's like it's super rewarding. And writing that melody on the violin and writing that song and doing the demo for that song was actually just one of the most rewarding things that I've done in music, to be honest. And I wanted to release the demo because I think everyone gets like that, but I really like the demo. But I will probably hopefully release it at some point. Awesome. Yeah.
Age has been an early favorite for me for the way it develops into an infectious, almost anthemic track. With a lot of your songs beginning simply with your voice, guitar, and violin during the early stages of writing, was this track always intended to break out into the emphatic song it is now in its final form, or did it sort of just naturally evolve into what it is?
I think that song I wrote in a day, and I was at someone's house. I'm not going to say who, but I was at someone's house, and I wrote it in a day, and they had a drum kit and an accordion and all the instruments basically to do a demo. And I think that I'd been feeling kind of off kilter, and I hadn't recorded anything on my own for a long time. And then the wind took, and I was like, okay, I'm going to record this song. I haven't done a demo in so long, and I'd kind of forgotten what it was like to just do a recording on my own, play everything on the recording, and just the sense of, I mean, we were talking about reward, like the sense of reward that you get from that. And it was super rough, and the drums were terrible, and you know, there were some bits that were awful, but that song kind of existed quite energetically from the beginning. And I just did a whole band, you know, myself, a whole band, and so the parts were sort of set in that way. And it was the way that I wrote it was like the most throwaway that I've ever written a song, which I just kind of just felt like I needed to write a song, and for the sake of it, not so much because I was trying to make it good, and I wanted to write something that wasn't too mopey. And so I did that. Not that I have anything against mopey songs, that's my favorite songs, but I just did it in a day. It kind of just came quite quickly, and it felt nice to write something slightly, I guess, just something a little bit more outside of myself. It was like it has a political edge to it, which a lot of my songs don't, unfortunately, because sometimes it doesn't really feel like a choice that I have, even though it is a choice that I have, which I should probably do. But yeah, I liked Age. It came quite naturally in one day.
You mentioned that sort of like writing out of a necessity, that you felt like you just needed to kind of almost get it done. I read that was kind of a similar case to Further Away, that it was kind of a non-musical vacation. Yeah. You maybe got kind of antsy and you just had to make a song. Is that the case?
Yeah. Further Away is funny because it sounds like I was just like living it up on a Greek island and I wrote a song. But the reality is, so my mum's Greek, and me and my grandma and my mum will sometimes go over there because my grandma has, my grandma lived there for 20 years with her husband, and they have, like, our family has a very, I guess, a somewhat like difficult connection to Greece, but they are Greek, and so they want to go there and be able to be with the good parts of the country, as well as maybe not having to address so much the difficult familial parts of the country for us. But we went over to an island called Lefkada, and it was we don't really do that many trips with me and my mum and my grandma. But I had just recently had a horrible breakup, like about a week before we went, and so that I kind of had that like crippling depression that you get when you've got a breakup, where I was just unable to really do anything more than like drink coffee and smoke cigarettes. And that was like pretty much my limit. And also, luckily, because we got the tiny bazooki, because my mum could tell that I was in a bad way, so she was like, all right, we'll get you a little something to just, so you can just do something, and then I got the tiny bazooki, and then they would go off and have like a lovely day on the beach, and I would just stay at home. And then I wrote some songs on that, but that's how Further Away was born. But not on this kind of like, we were on holiday, it was like pain holiday. Yeah. But it was good in a way. And actually, it's kind of, it's a further away, like Greece isn't that far away, but it was kind of about, being far away enough from that person, which was necessary at the time. Yeah.
All right, and the storytelling and the writing on Moving is just so profound. It seems as though it leaves room for interpretation, though it carries regret, sorrow, and finality within it. Can you share some of your own perspective, inspiration behind the song?
Yeah, that song. That song's funny because it sort of was. It's a strange one because I had a friend of mine ask me if it was about her, which I thought was very sweet, and in a way, it kind of was, but then it was also, it was sort of for myself, a big part of it, and I think that the feeling that came from that song was less like a constant need to improve myself or to get better in some way, and it was a bit more of a surrender to, I feel like having, in the moments of suffering, I'll often see like the kind of scope of my life since I was 15 or so as this, devastatingly terrible thing. And then like sometimes I'll write songs within that, and it was really nice to just have the relief of the line of saying, like, I'm sorry it all turned out this way, was a nice thing for me, because it kind of helped me, I guess, it's feeling sorry for yourself, but I guess I needed that at that time, and intermittently I need that in my life to just go inwards and like feel pain and feel sadness and feel all those things, and that's often, luckily, when a lot of songs come out, which is the case for loads of musicians, and also the lucky ones who get to write when they feel happy, which is nice for them. But I don't really have that so much. So yeah, I think that's sort of I remember writing that song quite prominently in my mind. It's one of the ones that I remember writing, along with Takes One I remember writing. But yeah, but it's all, I think also I've been talking to my friend a lot about it, that amnesia that you have when things are bad, where you just think that that's all it has been, and it's not that. There's obviously many different emotions and ups and downs and all of these different things that happen in one's life. But that was a real moment for me, and I always kind of travel back there whenever I play this song, which is nice.
The way our group works, we're called Soundwave Society, and we're a music club, so we're just a small group of friends that pretty well we take turns rotating. We put forth an album, we listen to it for a week, and then we discuss the album at the end of the week. So I'm just curious, if you were in a music club with a group of your friends, what would be the first album that you would put forth?
Ooh, like a current album.
Any album.
Any album? Well, it's funny because we were doing a thing, me and Jack and some of the members of Mildred were doing a thing in the car on the obviously long drives that we've been having, where we round table songs. So we'll like listen to a song and then we'll kind of round table and we'll do a general like yes or no, and then if it's a no, we have to give 1 point of, as long as the other points of why it's bad, but like also 1 point of why it's good, and then same on the other side, which has been really fun. But in terms of like putting forward an album, I guess the album that I've been really... Well, I'm excited. There's going to be the new Mount Erie album, which is coming out, I think, on the 2nd of November, which will be really good. So, I don't know if it'll be really good. It might not be good. It might be good. But I guess I would probably put forward that one. But then I've also been listening to... a band called The Bug Club. That was a band that we were round tabling. They're really good.
Oh, okay.
And that was a lot of yeses.
They're with Sub Pop, right? They recently
I have
came out
no
with a new
idea.
record.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just listened to that. But there was something else as well. I'm blanking on it. Like a new album. Oh yeah, I kept getting told to listen to MJ Lenderman.
Yeah.
Maybe I would put that album forward because I'd be interested to see what people said about it. Yeah.
It's a good album.
It is.
Yeah, I think it is a good album.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence with it.
Really?
Oh,
But I
okay.
think it's a good album.
Yeah.
I've listened to it twice now. I'm going to give it... I normally give albums 5 listens, and then I'll make like whether I kind of will continue listening to it or not. But I definitely like the first few tracks. But I'm gonna get into it more.
Thanks.
All right, and then just the closing question. We have an ongoing playlist just made up of tracks from artists we have the pleasure of connecting with. Is there a track of yours that you'd like to contribute to our playlist?
To the playlist, like one of my songs to
Yes.
contribute. I'll contribute. Could I contribute Takes One? I like the
absolutely.
I'll contribute that one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you again for joining us. This has been a pleasure. And Below a Massive Dark Land, it comes out September 27th, so keep your eyes out for that. And thank you again. It's been a pleasure. Really looking forward to the show.